Test, test. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Anybody have any questions? I'll talk randomly. Patrick Bateman, I think, had asked a question that I remembered, which is not a substantive question, but I'm just going to fill some airtime by answering it. He asked me if I like video games. I do. I grew up with a couple of people who grew up to become video game designers. One of them is a very famous top exec who helped develop League of Legends, which is a very popular, famous game. I play one of their sub games, Team Fortress Tactics. I love it. And my friend is actually, he has one of the characters in the game named after him. It's always really lovely. And I also have a lot of friends who worked on developing like World of Warcraft, stuff like that. It's a lot of fun. I played a lot of StarCraft as a kid, that kind of stuff. Oh, we have a substantive question. Patrick Bateman, I just answered your video game question. Pat 1985 asked us, hey, Vince, I'm involved in a litigation. Employer stated, you're all going to pay for this. How strong of evidence is that of a discrimination retaliation suit? Pat 1985, that is amazing evidence of a retaliation claim. I definitely would, as long as you can prove that, as long as you have witnesses or some kind of documentation of that, that is amazing. RM asks, are you able to answer my question about convincing a lawyer to take on my case without a lot up front? RM, I have a whole video playlist about how to package up your case to be more enticing for an attorney. I'd recommend you check out that playlist. I think it is the best possible advice, and it's much more long form than anything I can provide here. I think it's everything that I want to see out of a case, and I've been working on that for like years now. So it's a fairly large playlist, but that is all of my advice on how to package up your case to get a lawyer to take it and get excited about it. Patrick Bateman, what do you think of these sovereign citizen guys? Do they know what they are talking about? Patrick, I have no problem with them. I completely get the desire to be free. I don't understand the entirety of their platform. The legal system does not generally agree with them, but I don't really take a position on that fight. And it's not really tied to employment law. It can be. They crop up in employment law, but it's rare. Ria CCC asked, I'm concerned that if the top leaders of the company don't read in my demand letter about how bad the situation was, they will try to hide things under the rug and fight harder and longer. Ria, you hit them with the highlights. Hit them with some highlights and some quick statements about how you can prove the highlights. And they'll need to go, they'll go from there. You don't give them your entire case in the demand letter. I get the instinct, the desire to do that. It's a mistake. And it's very common. What you're feeling right now, what you're thinking right now is very common to clients. And I routinely have to have this discussion with clients. Like, listen, we don't put the entire case in demand letter. Let them lie. Let them fight. Their lies are things that we can prove later. We know we can prove these things. And those lies are opportunities. Those lies will help to build the case. They'll help to stack ammunition for the case. It's very important. Amy so Amy's got a case, or has been asking questions about a hypothetical case where a CEO, leveraged a position of power and forced some interactions in a hotel, and then kept a secret video of that, and then tried to scare that person by saying the CEO would release it as revenge porn. So in follow-up, Amy asked us, should the employee have special revenge porn lawyer in this case? Can the employee's normal employment attorney represent in that situation? Amy, in an ideal world with unlimited funds, yes, I would say hire an attorney specifically well-versed and experienced in dealing with revenge porn for the revenge porn portion of that case. If you cannot, that's normal. It's completely normal. And I think you'll be fine having an employment attorney if that employment attorney understands the issue of revenge porn and protecting your identity and all of those things. Like, certainly we've handled cases like that as the sole counsel on the case. It's a lot of extra work, but it's the kind of thing you do because you just want to be a decent human being. Like I assume whatever attorney you're working with would be willing to do the extra work because they're going to say, well, one, this case is really valuable and I want to represent you in this case. And two, it's the right thing to do. Like losing control of images of your body or of any kind of intimate activity, that's horrific. That really hurts a lot of people. And I get it. And if they can help you avoid that harm, I certainly think that would be good and right for them. Patrick asks us, at what age is it too late to become a lawyer? Patrick, no age. There is no age. It's too late to become a lawyer. I have, they're called OWLs, older, wiser lawyers. And I've certainly encouraged a number of people to become OWLs. I've worked with OWLs. I have gone to law school with OWLs. I think they're amazing, and they bring a lot of perspective and experience to the field. I became a lawyer very young. I think I was admitted by the time I was 27 or 28. I wouldn't necessarily advise that. Like it was very, worked out great for me. Obviously, I'm very happy, but I think it makes sense after college, after undergraduate, to go and get some actual experience. What do we have? I see people helping each other in comments. I love that. John Doe makes great points. A lot of lawyers will allow payment plans for an upfront retainer if there is an upfront retainer. I would be concerned about a lawyer who just wanted upfront money. RM asks us, is it possible to go through mediation with my crap attorney and then switch if I don't get a settlement offer I like? Would that mean the only option is to go to trial? RM, that is absolutely an option. It's absolutely an option. And especially if you feel confident that you can advocate for yourself and that you can control this attorney and keep an eye on this attorney, then yeah, that's a great option. I want to be clear though, if you don't settle at mediation, it doesn't end your chances of settlement, right? You can have settlement discussions at any stage, right? I've settled cases while the jury's filing in to give their verdict, right? Like defense counsel sees the jury like open the door and leans over and is like, yo, let's, we need a minute. Judge, we need a minute. I want to make an offer. And, you know, if the offer's right and everybody's a little nervous about what that jury might say, like that case can still get settled. So you can settle your case at any point. Having the mediation go south on you, or just being at mediation without counsel that you feel confident about, it's not the end of the world. You can also have additional mediations. Like there's nothing stopping you. I can't say the other side would necessarily agree to additional mediations, but I've had cases where we've had 3, 4, 5 mediations in a case because everybody wanted the case to settle, but there was, you know, fights about the numbers, the details. Patrick says, Vince with the W, pink crocodile, pink crocodile, pink crocodile. I don't know what that means. Oh, Gene asks us, after due diligence, I discovered the company using quiet firing to target protected classes. And I found employer reviews showing this pattern is in place. Is this evidence? It could be. Gene, it could be. I would do the due diligence, to use your term, in discovery, right? If you know there's a tendency to target a protected class and to paper those people out or terminate those people, whatever it is, get the hire and fire rates, get the promotion rates, get it tied to protected class. Like that data is available to you in a robust discovery process, like what you would see in federal court. And you don't need to use some employee reviews of employers from the internet. You can use those too, but the data as kept by the company will be even better. So definitely do that. Dizzy GMC, should I consider hiring an attorney outside of my state if I don't trust any of the local attorneys? Yes. Yeah. I mean, listen, I don't want, that's like, there's a couple of national firms of different levels of quality. Some of them are tremendous. Obviously I think ours is tremendous, but I don't want this to be an ad. I don't want you to come hire us because I'm doing this. I want you to find the representation that helps you the most, then this is the best deal for you. And usually that will be local counsel. But yeah, I mean, listen, if there's a problem, and there's a bunch of states in the US where you can't really find a plaintiff side employment attorney, and that's why the national firms exist, right? When dealing with the national firms, I will give one caveat. Like, I get a little uncomfortable when people hire personal injury firms who just decided that they're employment law firms. And like, of course I say that because I'm an employment law firm and I, don't think they do the cases the way they should do them. I'm sure they would counter that we have 900 attorneys and blah, 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 blah. Well, okay, maybe. I don't know. I only know of one employment attorney that's gone to work for one of these major national PI firms, and he's great. But I don't know, how many cases he could actually handle, right? So, Patrick, you'd be surprised. People ask me about sovereign citizen a lot, believe it or not. Pat 1985 asks, is it retaliatory for an employer, a public employer, to use administrative leave to try to thwart a lawsuit? Basically, they use a disciplinary trial to thwart the claim as leverage. Pat, I think you could certainly construe that in many situations as an act of retaliation. And it's very common so I don't know if the settlement offering to drop the disciplinary charge if you accept a settlement, I don't know if that would be necessarily viewed as retaliation, although I think you could try to couch it that way. But yes, I could view the administrative process being an act of retaliation. I think, John Doe, that what Pat 1985 is describing is like a civil service hearing or a tenure hearing, something of that nature that's not tied to the discrimination. So the discrimination case is going on in parallel, separately in like the EEOC, federal court, state court, whatever it is. And there's this internal process to the state or municipal body, and those are running in parallel. So that it's two separate processes. You don't have to exhaust the administrative process for like a tenure hearing or a civil service hearing or an oath hearing, something like that. Jake, I think I missed the first part of your question. Oh, I guess not. That's the entire question. A review of the information provided failed to indicate that a violation of the statute has occurred. However, this doesn't certify that respondent is within compliance with the statutes. Meaning, Jake, that means they punted. It means they didn't make a decision. That's what it means. Oh, okay. Understood, Patrick. Patrick says that he was saying we won, which I like. Gene asks, I was laid off until unemployment exhausted, constructive discharge, aka quiet firing, said I quit, but paid unemployment for 6 months, hired for the same position, unemployment determination says laid off. Okay. So it sounds like you were successful in making the constructive termination argument. I love that. Excuse me, Amy, I can't give you advice as to state laws. I don't know what state you're in, so I can't. First and foremost, I won't even know what state you're in, so I don't know what the law is and what state you're in. But additionally, I'm not allowed to speak to the state laws of states other than the states I'm admitted to. So if I'm speaking to the state laws of an unknown state, I'm both doing you a disservice and engaged in the unethical practice of law in a state that I'm not admitted in. I can speak to the federal laws in all 50 states that pen through the EEOC. That is how this channel exists, but I cannot speak to the local state laws, the local and state laws of states, even hypothetical states. Token the God, sick name. Love that name. What do I do if the EEOC investigator seems uninterested? That's the norm. That's the norm. That might be really frustrating to hear, but that is the norm. There are amazing EEOC investigators. They do exist. They're out there. I've worked with many of them. I can give you the names of some of them. I had a conversation with one this week in a state that I've never practiced in before, where I was like, wow, you're a real human who behaves like a human being, who cares about people. But token the God, that is normal. You're welcome, Pat 1985. I hope that helped. RM, I love to hear you did the damage calculation on your own case. I hope that you used some of the videos we provided. I hope they were helpful. Yeah, don't take a bad offer. Token the God. If my employer lied about the reason I was fired because they broke safety policy and didn't provide proper PPE, how do I get a lawyer to fully understand my case and realize how my life has been turned upside down? So you might not need a lawyer. If the concern is safety, you could just file with OSHA on your own. Now, if you're talking about like they didn't, and I've certainly had cases where people weren't given proper PPE, proper safety equipment, cooling vests. I had a case a long time ago where I had a bunch of workers who were, and this is highly publicized, so I can talk about it. We're working in like a power reactor, and it was incredibly hot in there, and the employer was not giving the African American workers cooling vests, even though it was like 120 degrees inside the reactor, whatever it was. And like, I think the employer was like, "Oh, black people are used to the heat; they don't need cooling vests." And this idiot had like a Confederate flag on his helmet, right? There's a lot going on in that case, but yeah, that's common. If it's tied to discrimination, then I would just lead with the discrimination and show the safety issues, the OSHA issues, the derelict PPE behavior as results of the discrimination. There's no discrimination going on in just PPE. It can be hard to find attorneys to handle OSHA cases, in part because attorneys know that OSHA, you don't necessarily need an attorney, but also like the OSHA cases take forever and you're in the hands of a kind of a crumbling federal agency. So like you invest all this time and money and there might not be a result. So a lot of attorneys don't take OSHA cases. So, be aware of that. What do we have? Oh, thank you. I'm glad you watch the channel all the time. RMS, can finding evidence suggesting potentially illegal business activity during discovery be used as leverage against the employer? For example, antitrust and regulatory requirements. RM, I'm going to be very careful in how I answer this question. I would never engage in the behavior of threatening employer with reporting illegal acts if they don't give my client money, because that would be something that could be illegal to do. That could be viewed as extortion or blackmail. I have a video on the channel about the extortion kind of spectrum that I'd recommend you watch. Now, that being said, a hypothetical attorney, who is not me, because I would never do this, a hypothetical attorney could handle that in a proper way where they don't engage in blackmail or extortion, but where the employer is well aware of the additional leverage that the client holds vis-a-vis having evidence in their hands of illegal activity, right? And a hypothetical attorney who's not as ethical as myself could potentially use that, if they're very, very careful about the words they use, to get a more sizable settlement for their client. Now, I'll direct you, of course, to the history of famous ex-attorney Avenatti, as he was famous for like 2 years out of New York, and that was kind of a weird thing because like he was in New York and we kind of knew of him, and then all of a sudden he was famous out of nowhere, and everybody was kind of like, that guy got famous? How'd that happen? Like, that's the guy. And then he had this meteoric rise and rather precipitous fall, and is in jail now, I believe. What do we have? John Doe, here's the question. When it comes to mitigating damages, the standard is generally a substantially similar position, right? Would a working condition like being 100% remote need to be part of the new position to mitigate? I would think you could make that argument, John Doe. I mean, it's not going to be a well-settled issue because the world of remote work is just now exploding. But I would feel comfortable making an argument that you cannot replace a fully remote position with an in-person position, so long as the person can prove why their fully remote position is necessary to them, right? If you have accommodations where you need to be remote, if you have health issues, right? If you live in Bali, but work remotely for companies in the US, right? I think you can certainly make arguments why something would not be comparable. Oh, Token the God, that's amazing. Token the God added to the safety question. Token the God asked, saying, oh, it's more than safety, it's race, sex, etc. Amazing. That's great. So tying the safety issues to discrimination is substantially more valuable. And what I said to you earlier about presenting it to attorneys in that way, I would recommend you follow through on that and hit up our playlist on how to package cases to look more palatable and exciting and enticing to attorneys. I think that'll get you better offers from more attorneys. Okay, Jake asked us, thank you for the response. I also had an EEOC investigator who said I missed the 300-day deadline and gave me a right to sue letter. It was actually 298 days, and the EEOC won't reopen it. Anything I can do? You can file in federal court. If you feel that your right to sue letter has discrete acts of workplace discrimination or workplace sexual harassment within the 300-day statute of limitations, you can file in federal court and make that argument in federal court. Just be prepared to fight that fight, because defense counsel will try to argue that things are outside the statute of limitations. The case should not be in federal court. Also, Jake, keep in mind, wherever you are, you may have longer state and local statutes of limitations, which I am not allowed to advise you about unless you're outside New York. So, check with local counsel. You could have a 2, 3, 4, 5 year. I mean, listen, some statute of limitations are quite sizable these days, depending on the claims you have. So, look into that. Gene, I have no idea if you have a strong case. I don't know anything about your case. I'm sorry. Based on what you said to me so far, you would certainly get past a call center. I think if you called a law firm and presented what you just presented to me, I would think they would put you on the phone with an attorney. But I don't know nearly enough about your case to tell you if it's strong or not. It certainly sounds like it's potentially worth pursuing. This is a great question, MMs. Thank you, Vince. If your employer is a B-list celebrity who does not want harassment wrongful termination case to be public, how would you advise leveraging that fact in a settlement negotiations versus mediation? All right. This is huge, and this is how do I say this properly? This is kind of how our firm came up. These situations where you have cases against reality TV stars, B-list celebrities, stuff like that, they are very common. Like, there's so many, like, people are like huge fans of reality TV stars, and they talk to me about reality TV stars, and in the back of my head, I'm like, that person uses the N-word a lot, and I can't say anything because I'm like subject to confidentiality and stuff like that, right? Reality TV stars are insane people, and many times are horrific. And the more famous they are, generally that means the more insane and horrific they are, because being insane and horrific is good TV. And they have a lot of people around them who protect them from things like being outed for using the N-word, right? So yeah, get an attorney who has done many repetitions of that where you are. And there's definitely ways to do that. And honestly, the B-list celebrities counsel will often introduce that concept. Like, you don't have to go extort someone or blackmail someone, right? You shouldn't. It's wrong. It's illegal. I don't know if it's wrong. It's illegal. Don't do it. It's unethical. And attorneys can't do it. But defense counsel can be like, hey, we want to settle because like this is going to destroy a career and a brand and all these other things. So like, what do you want? And when they introduce that, your counsel's response should be, we're not bringing our claims based on destroying. We're not blackmailing your client. We're not trying to destroy brand. We're addressing what was done that is wrong and get our client made whole, right? And it can definitely be addressed in a way where defense counsel will capture the additional value for you because of their interests without you doing anything wrong or unethical. And your attorney can handle that in a variety of ways. And also just be courteous. If you're going to be doing a press release or doing an interview or, on national TV about something, provide notice just as a courtesy to defense counsel, right? I mean, that's the decent thing to do. And that, gives them a chance to talk about that sort of thing with their client, and never say if this, then that kind of statements. If you don't pay me, then I will do that. That's you're now on the wrong side of the law and you're doing bad things. Let them do the heavy lifting on that. You don't have to engage in that behavior. And I wish you great luck. I know that all celebrities, but especially B-list celebrities, can be horrific because B-list celebrities just don't have the same comfort and safety that, A-listers do. A-listers can be lovely people because, no challenges in their life. B-listers, they're scrapping it out and they get real squirrely from time to time. Long-term cooking, federal employee here. Will my EEO investigator include everything I give them in the ROI so I can be certain the judge or final agency decider sees it? No, they will not. They will not include everything. They will include what they see fit. Oh, the whole chat just jumped all at once. All right. What do we have? Pat 1985. Vince, discriminatory Facebook post by my employer. He's now posting that his Facebook has been hacked. I assume to get that evidence tossed, any evidence the judge will buy this story. I would find that to be a difficult narrative for your employer to run with, Pat 1985. Make sure you have as much history saved of that Facebook account as you can, as many screenshots, whatever you can. Because listen, if he's like, oh, my account was hacked, just be like, yeah, was it hacked for 5 years? Was it hacked when, there's a lot you can do there, right? Ria CCC asked us, can daily excessive monitoring and constant badgering after complaint of discrimination be considered a hostile work environment? Potentially, Ria. More importantly, it can be considered retaliation. The retaliation claim is going to be a significantly stronger claim than hostile work environment in most situations, and it gives rise to a third class of damages, punitive damages, and it also can have burden shifting consequences where your evidentiary burden is lessened by the retaliation claim. So you should be talking to your attorney about retaliation claim tied to the excessive monitoring and badgering. Token the God says, I've been studying employment law and federal employment law. What should I focus on while going through the EEOC investigation process? And sorry for all the questions, just excited to actually receive answers. Receive feedback and knowledge. So focus on the laws that apply to you. I mean, that's the simple thing. You're not going to learn the entire field of employment law in one case, and that's okay. You shouldn't have to. Identify the statutes that specifically apply to you, all of them. Ideally, listen, if you can get counsel. But if you're doing this on your own, I get it. So pinpoint the rules, the statutes that apply to you, and then know that on the federal level, but also learn your local and municipal and state rights, right? All very important. What do we have? DWS says, I posted a question up above. Could you tell me where I can research this? It is from a permanent injury from an old workers' comp case. DW, I don't deal with workers' compensation. I don't know much about that field. I did less than 2 months in workers' compensation as a law student, working for like a girlfriend's at the time dad. But if you have a question that is employment related, tied to the workers' comp case or something going on today, I'm happy to answer that question. I think I missed your question, so I don't want to leave you high and dry here. Erica SS received a mandatory mediation letter, EEOC disability claim anxiety. I disclosed to the company and called things like don't go crazy on me and called me stupid. They hired a lawyer and deny that I disclosed. I am a bit shocked that you received a mandatory mediation letter from the EEOC. It doesn't disturb me that much because mediation is non-binding. You can go and listen. And I think it is, I have a lot of videos on the channel about mediation. You should mediate early and often. It's a great opportunity. Even if you decide ultimately you don't want to settle and you're not being made offers that you would accept, you can learn a great deal and you can lock the defendant into certain positions to some extent. So mediation is great. I'm just shocked that the EEOC would mandate you to mediation. That's usually something I see in federal court. And good luck to you. I'm sorry they called you crazy. It sounds like you are sitting on quite a good case there, and I wish you great success. Gene, you can send my video. Okay. Gene asked us, can I use this video as evidence to intimidate the defense? I don't know which part of this video you would use. but I don't mind people sending the videos around. And if something I created can help you, that would make me happy. But I am not your attorney. I cannot represent you. I mean, you certainly haven't hired me, right? So, none of this is legal advice, and we don't have an attorney-client relationship, but you can throw my videos at anyone you want, and I hope it makes you money. MM's looks like deleted a message. MM's, if you have follow-up, here, you posted something else. MM says, we have an email they sent to a recruiter after I was terminated, saying they are going to ruin my life and make sure I don't work again. We have mediation set for February, but I feel my attorney has me on the back burner. MM's, I think your question was about a B-list celebrity. I don't know why you would have mediation. So just for context, if you're watching this video in the future, it is September 4th. It is Labor Day. And MM's is saying she has a mediation against a B-list celebrity in February, presumably of 2024. That to me, why? Why would that pushes things out so far? It's making your case not a priority. It's giving the B-list celebrity time to begin feeling comfortable living in a world with your claims. I don't like to reference the Nazis, but the best way to run an employment law case is like a blitz, just constant pressure, like the Mongolians, swift attack. No one on the defense side should ever be comfortable. Even the defense counsel, who does this every single day of her or his life, should be like, God, these guys again, God, right? And the person who doesn't do this every day of their life, like the actual B-list celebrity, should be like losing sleep over your case. There should be pressure, constant pressure, creating constant anxiety. Part of the job of a plaintiff side employment attorney is to harm the mental well-being of the bad actor through no means other than legal means. But you should use every source of pressure, every legal tactic you can to constantly be applying pressure. And February is too far, too far in my mind. MM's, how can you get a second opinion? I've reached out to attorneys, but because I have counsel retained, they won't help me. Yeah, I get that. There's definitely a sense when you have counsel that, first off, a lot of the attorneys, when you have counsel and you're calling them for help, they're like, you're wasting my time, right? Because they're like, you're not going to hire me, so why am I on the phone with you? Go, be gone, right? And I get that. I think that's a little self-serving, a little selfish, but I get it. There's also a more noble tendency to not want to step on the toes of an attorney, right? A lot of attorneys don't want to be like the kinds who are out there trying to snake clients from other attorneys. And that happens. And they also don't want to be like countermanding the advice of your counsel. So there's tension there, but I think there absolutely are attorneys who would give you second opinions and talk the situation out. Certainly. Token the God says, I wish you were in Washington. I don't know if you're referencing DC or Washington State, but either way, I'm glad I'm not. Sorry. Good luck to you. What do we have? MM's, what would you advise me to do with my attorney so I can get them on top of this B-lister? I don't know. So I manage attorneys from the inside of a firm, which is very different than how a client manages attorneys. I've watched attorneys be managed by clients. And it's cool to watch, but it's a very specialized skill set, and there's not too many clients who can do it. And a lot of times it's hard to know how they're doing it, how clients are doing it. MM's, I don't know. I mean, if these attorneys are good attorneys, like you seem to believe these are the attorneys for you, hit them with questions. Why February? What are we doing to apply pressure? What are we doing? what are we doing on a daily basis to add value and reduce risk on my case? And they might be hostile. And that's a sign, right? If they're like, what do you mean? I don't have to answer these questions for you. I don't like that. That's not what I want to hear out of an attorney. Ria CCC asks, thank you for your help, Vince. One last question. Does it make sense to copy diversity advocates and allies at the company to attempt to change things internally? I don't know. I mean, that tends to escalate things rather rapidly. I've seen it go both ways. I've seen it help cases, but I've also seen it kind of go south on people. I don't have like a firm answer on that one. I think it would be situationally driven, detail driven. What do we have? Token the God asked a two-part question here. A white female employee leaves work early one day without notifying a supervisor, and the policy says she should be fired. A black male employee gets injured and is told you're done for the day, leaves a note for his boss stating why he's leaving, and informs his boss's boss in person why he's leaving. The next day, female coworker is at work, the black male employee is fired for job abandonment. Is there a case? I would say, yeah, that sounds like a very clear disparate treatment case. Token the God, I think there's a lot going on there. Certainly, I would expect employment attorneys to be excited about your case. All right, we have 19 people on the stream. I've been going with a brief break for a loss of internet for about an hour and a half. We probably have 9 minutes left. I'm going to do 9 minutes. It's the longest live stream we've ever done, but hey, it's Labor Day, right? Got to get back. Erica says, I cannot afford a lawyer, and they have a lawyer. Erica, so generally speaking in this field, attorneys will work on a contingency basis. Now, that is becoming less and less the case. The national firms, most of them, I think, charge something up front. Not all. I'm not privy to all the billing practices and retainer practices of all these firms. Let me just close this window here. Get some of the light off me. But I think most of the national firms might charge something up front. I'm definitely aware of local attorneys in many parts of the country who don't charge anything up front, Erica. They tend to work on a contingency basis, a percentage what they win for you and front expenses. I often see that. There's a lot of variance between the areas. Charles asked us, Vince, when are you going to open an office in Syracuse, New York? Very few labor lawyers on plaintiff's side in central New York. So Charles, we do handle cases in upstate New York, but we travel for those cases, right? So we handle cases in all 50 states. I agree with you generally that upstate New York, which is actually where I'm originally from. Charles, you may know, I don't know if you know, I went to Lemoyne College in Syracuse and I worked at Harry's Bar and Grill. I actually worked as a bouncer in Harry's Bar and Grill for years during university on the Syracuse Marshall Street area. So I love Syracuse. Wouldn't want to live there, just to be upfront with you. Wouldn't want to live in Binghamton. It's just, I'm a Buffalo Bills fan. I love upstate New York. Wouldn't live there, wouldn't open an office there, but certainly can and do fly teams of attorneys in to represent people all over upstate New York. Vince, can previous discrimination lawsuits against my employer be used as evidence in my lawsuit, even if they were settled out of court? Pat, potentially. I mean, it's always going to be detail driven. I would say if those lawsuits are on the docket, you may want to go about looking up the sworn statements that were put in as witness statements, the deposition transfer, whatever you can get, whatever quotes you can get from the dispositive motions on the docket, right? If this is on a public docket, you can start pulling things out of that, and you can either use them in that format, or you can, in discovery, question people about them, bring them up at depositions, search for things in interrogatories, use them to inform your document discovery. There's a lot you can do to there. Please, Pamaroon, can you give me a little more there? Can you give me a little more specific what you mean? I want to answer that question. Also, Pamaroon, super nice to see you. Haven't seen you in a while. Welcome back. Oh, Charles. Charles says, I've been watching your videos since the start. I remember that. You were a subscriber to the channel when we had like 200 subscribers, I believe. I don't want to live here in Syracuse anymore either. Yeah. So upstate New York is like a tough place to live because it's very low wages, but very high taxes. The taxation of New York State is kind of heavily set by New York City. But the earnings potential in upstate New York is not in any way similar to New York City. So you have people earning very little, but being taxed very high. And New York's kind of famous, especially outside the city, for just not offering services, right? You have this huge tax load in New York, which I would be cool with if people were being helped, right? But in New York, I mean, it's not like the homeless are helped. The services aren't really there. The bridges are crumbling. Like it's just not, the subways in New York City are falling apart. The city is infested with rats and fleas, and the subways are filling with water and they're not being upkept. Like, where does all the tax money go? It's super hard to live in a state, which is why I left, where like you're paying huge amount of taxation and you watch the people that you want those taxes to help not being helped. That sucks. That's why I left New York. Gene, we practice in all 50 states and all U.S. territories using the specific federal laws that pen through the EEOC. John Doe, I am generally familiar with the existence of Greece, New York. My old roommate lives in Mexico, New York, which is not that close, but is kind of up there-ish. RM, so when you say E&E, what do you mean? Fill me in. I want to answer a question. Thank you, Charles. That's very kind of you. Yeah, I think we're going to hit 40,000 subscribers tomorrow, which is big. It's a big jump from 250, right? And that's all in like a year. I mean, I've been making YouTube videos since 2013. I sold the old videos. I know I've told the story on the channel. We still have the old videos. I can still post them, but they're horrible. And I look horrible. And they're like low value. I think the big thing that changed the channel was when I was like, hey, we're making a lot of money. We should be helping people. That's one of the weird things about this industry is as you get better, your clients get wealthier because wealthy people want to hire you, and wealthier clients are worth way, way more often. Not always, but often in terms of what you can win for them. So then one day you look around and you're like, I got in this industry to help people, and I am helping people, but everybody I'm helping makes like $500,000 a year. And that, it's cool. They do need help too. But it'd be cool to help people who make like 40 grand a year as well. Right. So that's kind of why I like redid the channel and like changed it up and did the question a day thing, because I was like, none of this should dissuade you. Like, call firms. Firms are not just going to represent people with, hiring what potential, whatever. Like, don't be swayed from calling firms. That none of this is supposed to do that. I'm just saying there was like a moment where I was like, my clients are all so much richer than I was when I grew up. And that's weird because that's not really why theoretically one goes into employment law. Pam Maroon, what above the board tax write-off are entitled for the client post-settlement, and when you advise a CPA or a tax attorney? Pam Maroon, I absolutely would advise. So I would say that you should be working with both a tax attorney. If you have a sizable settlement, like it's big, the clients who I've seen have the most success dealing with the tax consequences of their employment case, their large employment result, worked with CPAs and occasionally tax attorneys who are well-versed in dealing with these specific settlements. And these settlements are a bit different than personal injury and medical malpractice settlements. So you need to really find someone who's worked with these before. I remember I had a client who got her settlement, and she bought like a bakery and was hugely successful at defraying the tax consequences of her settlement with professional guidance and everything else. And like, on one hand, she was achieving her dream. She wanted to own a bakery, which was a big career change for her. She was a super successful, I don't want to give it an identifying. She was a very successful executive, right? And like, I guess her life dream was like owning a bakery, right? And then, so she just like made that pivot. She was like, I got so much money, pivot, boom, bakery, right? And then like huge amounts of success. Like I think bakeries are very expensive, like the ovens and everything. There's a lot of infrastructure that goes into bakeries. So she was able to flip a lot of that into tax savings, various ways, and then had all this equipment. And I think had like depreciation strategies and was able to take loans against equipment. And like, I'm not a tax attorney. I'm not a tax advisor. I should not give you tax advice. But watching that from the outside was like, whoa, that's very smart, right? DW, I worked for a company for 17 years as a truck driver. They let me go, stating that they no longer wanted to accommodate me and hired a common carrier that is a loophole to escape liability. So DW, if they let you go and the termination, the reason for termination was that they don't want to accommodate you anymore, that's still a claim, even if they hired a common carrier, right? If they said instead, hey, we want to hire a common carrier because we think it's a better deal for our business, that might not be a very strong claim, might not, detail driven. But if they said outright, like, hey, we don't accommodate you anymore, that's still a claim. That is right, John, though. A lot of my earlier videos were answering Charles's questions. Charles was one of the early askers, and he was really, he had some great questions. Bree M. I've calculated my pecuniary damages and can justify them, but not sure how to justify non-pecuniary. Is 100K a lot for non-pecuniary? How demanding 100K will be settled? How likely is it that demanding 108K will be settled for in mediation? So Bree, it depends on the case. Always depends on the case, right? I can't tell you how likely it is that your case will settle or not settle. I don't know the personalities involved. I don't know the facts of the case. I don't know the strengths of the case. I don't know the exposure that the employer is facing. I don't know your willingness to move off the $180 figure. So I can't really give you an answer of the likelihood that it'll settle. I'll say this on emotional damages, and this is going to enrage employment attorneys everywhere. So you can't count on emotional damages in settlement in terms of valuation that much. However, if you are accepting of the risk of trial, I'll say this. I've never seen, in the last 3 firms that I worked for, I've never seen an employment law case win at trial and win less than $100,000 in emotional damages. Now, it does not mean that you should just be like 100,000 minimum, blah, 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 blah. I'm never going to move off that. That's not what that means, because cases don't necessarily win. And there's a lot of things that can happen that keeps a case from winning at trial or even getting to trial, right? So I'm not saying that, but I am saying I don't think you're crazy to tack on 100K in emotional damages. Just be aware that they might not settle with you based on that. All right, I am over. What? All right. Seeing questions here. Oh, thank you, RM. Is it normal or logical for a defendant to proceed with mandatory early neutral evaluation prior to taking the plaintiff's deposition? I thought deposition comes first. So, RM, neutral evaluation has value, right? Has tremendous value, and it's going to really inform the employer as to if they should potentially be re-entering negotiations with you. I don't think there's anything wrong with doing that before deposition. I actually think it's really smart that they're doing that before deposition. If you're already at deposition stage in discovery, the amount of legal fees that have been expended are substantial. So like, it makes sense to do things early on to inform the employer. Should we cut a check here or not? Like, what's the story? GW, I have a firm that takes cases. I do not personally take cases on myself. I run a firm. I work as an arbitrator. I mediate cases. But I do not, you cannot hire me. I mean, unless you're cutting a I don't want to be rude. Unless you're cutting a 6-figure check, Yeah, let's be upfront. Unless you're getting a 6-figure check, you're not hiring me as your personal attorney. And I don't want that. We have firms here. Our firm tends to work on a contingency basis. We prefer to win our money. That's very much the model here. And every case at this firm is worked as a team. And I would be involved. If your case came in through me, I would be involved with your team. I would be one of the attorneys assigned to your case, but I would not be your day-to-day attorney. I would probably also not be the litigation attorney supervising your case. I would be an additional asset, additional resource attached to your case. Certainly, plenty of times clients are like, hey, I want to talk to Vince about this particular question. We arrange those calls. My duty is to my clients. And if it's a question of making a YouTube video or answering my clients' questions, my clients are always going to come first, right? It's just the reality of what has to be. That being said, yeah, our firm takes cases. Our firm takes cases in all 50 states. You should, you should talk to local counsel first before you talk to a national firm like ours, because local counsel will be cheaper and they could be fantastic for all I know. I have no idea what your local options are, but generally speaking, yes, DW, you certainly could. Oh yeah, I'm involved, DW. People don't hire our firm and then never get to talk to me again. That's not what happens. MM's been asking questions about a B-list celebrity that MM's is litigating with. Advice for changing lawyers before mediation. Peace. Can I hire to chase a B-list Bravo celebrity? Hee. MM's, I'm not doing this live stream to get clients. And it makes me uncomfortable to monetize this conversation in that way. If you're asking me if I would have a free conversation with you about your case, I would. But I'm going to urge you to work with local counsel, which would be a better deal. Obviously this YouTube channel has really blown up and it's generated additional cases for our firm. That wasn't my goal. And I'm not going to be sad that everything I touch turns into money, but except this farm. Let me assure you, this farm is not turning into money. Yeah, obviously I'd have a conversation with you. If I can help you, if I can answer questions for you, we can schedule that call. Any answers I have for you, depending on where you are, will be just, pertaining to the federal laws. I can't advise you as to the state laws where you are. But if I can help in some way, I'd be happy to help. I hope that's not, I don't want to yeah. Also, we do have that packaging playlist on how to package your case for attorneys. Chris asked us, what about third-party claims? What about filing third-party claims against the boss and not against the employer? So, Chris, that is something you do to drive. I actually have videos on the channel about this, but I understand there's 1,000 or 1,200 videos now. So it's easy for me to be like, oh, there's videos on that channel, but finding those videos is a deep dive, right? But Chris, so that is something that our playbook, occasionally will file claims against individuals who work at a company in addition to the claims against the company. We do this not because those claims are necessarily valuable. Individuals don't have the deep pockets that an employer will generally have. And the laws that you can use against individuals are generally not as good, depending on where you are, as the laws you can use against the employer. Which lower value, higher risk is what I'm telling you about those claims. But you still might do it in certain situations where you want to drive a wedge between an employer and a particularly difficult witness or a bad actor. Because sometimes when someone realizes that you're bringing individual claims against them, and those individual claims could take their house, it can alter people's behavior, and it can shake certain loyalties, and it can, drive that wedge. And sometimes driving that wedge is a key tactical thing. Is this really ugly thing to do? Yeah. I mean, listen, I once got in trouble. I think I've told the story on the channel before. This is not supposed to be a nice thing. We're not making you friends here. I joke around about being monsters for hire, but somebody was once How can you do this to me? I've got kids. And I got in trouble for me. Like, oh, don't worry, man. Don't worry. Nobody wants your kids. Keep them. I take the rest. Which I guess I shouldn't find funny because I got in trouble for saying that. But to the extent I'm allowed to find that funny, I find that funny. Hi, Crystal Clear Central. Welcome. OOO asks, can I file a case in my home state court as a plaintiff, not in the defendant employer state? That is a detailed, complex procedural question. And you should talk about that with local counsel. You very well may be able to. I don't know. All right, everyone. I have now been on for an hour and 40 minutes, which is wild. And it is Labor Day. And I'm going to go not labor. I hope this was helpful. Like, subscribe, comment down below. It helps me to help more people just like you. I think there's a down below, right? I don't know. I don't even know what a live stream looks like from the other end. Bye, everybody. Take care. Go enjoy your Labor Day. Learn about organized labor. Yes. Ring the bell icon. I don't know what that is. Ring it. John Doe knows things. He is probably right. Bye.